Okay, this is part 3 of the Roaring Twenties, the election of 1924. Now, as I mentioned before, Calvin Coolidge is going to continue on after Warren G. Harding's death on August 2nd of 1923. So he's the obvious choice to run for the Republican Party in 1924. The Democrats at this time are in a state of turmoil. They really are in a state of a beginning of transition. For those that have taken my classes before know that the Democratic Party leading up to the Civil War had become a party of slavery, right? And in the immediate aftermath of the Civil War, the Democratic Party was the party of white supremacy. But by 1920s, you start to see some cracks in that veneer. There is still a very strong pro-white supremacist component to the Democratic Party. But there's also a lot of influx of immigrants coming into the Democratic Party. And so the party itself is finding itself in conflict. You really see this in the election of 1924 at the Democratic Convention, right? The Democratic Convention is going to have two primary candidates vying for the presidency. Al Smith from New York and William McAdoo from California. And these two men could not be more opposite from each other. Al Smith is the son of immigrants. He's an Irish. He's Catholic. He's anti-prohibition. He's anti-KKK. Right? He's pro-immigrant. William McAdoo is none of those things. He's the exact flip of the other side of that coin. Right? And the party itself finds itself very torn over these issues. I'll give you an example. During political conventions, this is where you decide what is your political platform for the year going to be. Somebody suggested during the convention that one of their platform items should be the condemnation of the Ku Klux Klan. That was put up to a vote. It failed to become part of the Democratic platform, but the vote was 542 to 546. It failed by only 4 votes when you had over 1,000 people voting. So these two candidates that are on polar opposite spectrums from each other, right? It's very difficult to determine who's actually going to win out on this, right? So there's going to be a vote. Neither one of them get the majority needed to get the nomination. There's some conversation, some glad handing, some speeches given, they vote again. Same result, right? This happens over and over and over. 102 times they cast ballots to see which one of these candidates is going to be their presidential nominee. And 102 times, neither Al Smith nor William McAdoo can get a majority. It is not until the 103rd ballot, finally, the Democrats have a candidate. John William Davis. Who's John Davis? He's nobody. What is his positions on issues? Yeah, he tries not to take them. He's a give-up candidate. This is the guy, give you an example of what this is like. This is when it's 3rd down and 30, and you watch your team run the running back up the middle for 3 yards, and you get upset at the TV. And you're sitting there saying, what are you doing? You're only playing to punt. Well, that's John Davis. John Davis is the Democrats playing to punt. They have given up on this presidential election, and Calvin Coolidge wins pretty easily. Calvin Coolidge, better known as Silent Cal. He is an interesting character. He did a lot of things, actually, as president. Matter of fact, they'll refer to the economy under his presidency as Coolidge prosperity. The earmark of the economy of the Roaring Twenties will bear his name, right? But he was known for being very terse, a man of very few words. I'll give you an example. In 1914, he was reelected to the U.S. Senate, and he was going to be made pro tem of the Senate, the leader of the Senate. And so he was told, you have to give a speech. And he's like, well, I don't really want to. Look, you're going to be Senate pro tem. You've got to give a speech. And so he does. Here's the speech. I'll read it in its entirety. Conserve the foundations of our institutions. Do your work with the spirit of a soldier in the public service. Be loyal to the Commonwealth and to yourselves, and be brief. Above all things, be brief. Drops mic, leaves stage. I mean, that's it. So when he's elected in his own rights, his speech is longer, but there's also other people that influenced it to make sure that his inaugural speech wasn't another one like this one for the Senate pro tem. I think the best story to describe how terse he could be was given by Grace Goodhue Coolidge, his wife, after his death. She was talking about a dinner party that they were at one time while he was president, when she was sitting at his left side, and to his right side, this woman had the fortunate happenstance to be seated next to the president. She leaned over to Calvin Coolidge and said, "My friends over there have made me a bet that I cannot engage you in 3 words of conversation." And he looked her straight in the eye and said, "You lose."